I would have relied on a national commissioner to play the role that I played when I was in that position, to reach out to the president.
Do you think the president was aware that the PKTT is going to be dissolved?
I cannot say that. If I listen to what he said in the recent media interview he did in Northern Cape, it makes me believe that he didn't know. When I met with him after my press briefing, he acted as a person who was not aware of what was happening.
Do you know the relationship of President and Paul O'Sullivan?
No, I don't know how related they are. I just don't know that Mr. Paul O'Sullivan speaks a lot about being in contact with many people, including the president. So I have not gone deeper into establishing the type of relationship they have.
Does he have do you know of any relationship between him and one of the president's advisors?
Mr. Paul O'Sullivan? No, not of. I know that there is a lot of talks about engagement, I think, with Mr. Chauke and amongst others. But again, it's something that it's communicated out there, but I never really got deeper to investigate the type of relationship that is there.
Through our own intelligence, were you able to establish that Paul O'Sullivan is a member or a former member of M16?
Well, I have not necessarily got the briefing in details from intelligence in that regard. I've heard the talks about it. I don't have the full briefing. What is of interesting is that he's got citizenship in 3 countries, and that makes me wonder. And he seems to have been a person who got angry when he was disturbed by being removed from the port of entry in South Africa, the main port of entry at the time, which was Johannesburg International Airport. When he was removed, he did not take that kindly. So it will make me conclude that there were some things that were happening in that airport that made him angry.
So we'll be correct to say Mr. Paul O'Sullivan is one of the rogue elements that are destabilizing SAPS and wanting to capture every senior police officer at SAPS, and if you don't cooperate, he start engaging in blackmailing activities.
With no doubt, I'm going to invite the parliament through the structures of intelligence or structures of security and whoever structures you can come up with, to look at the time of Mr. Robert McBride Turner as the head of IPD, how they were interacting with Paul O'Sullivan. Bank movements, money movements, the meeting venues, the cell phone locations where they meet, how they engage in terms of investigation. I'm saying this to the members because it is that which Mr. Nkabinde told me, who is now a chief of staff in the office of the minister, that operations of IPD were planned, coordinated, and executed at Paul O'Sullivan's house. That was his words to me. So I'm going to request that such be investigated in details, because the phone will put McBride in this place, will put Paul O'Sullivan in this place, will put Nkabinde in this place, and others. And when that investigation is conducted, nobody can deny it, because we'll know exactly that all of them have been operating guided by Paul O'Sullivan. And that is on one side. And I'm interested to know, honorable members, as to who is the author of the report that was produced when the city of Johannesburg, as well as the national commissioner, wrote to the state security asking them about the legality or otherwise of the gadget that were bought by the city of Johannesburg at the time when Jairus Bia was in charge of the security in that place. And who is the company that supplied that gadget? And how was that gadget sourced from the country in Europe where it comes from, in the UK? And I want to also recommend an investigation against the purchase of the similar gadget that was bought by DPCI back in 2010, where Jairus Bia was working at DPCI at the time. Whether such was bought legally, who are the supplier, and who's the manufacturer of the things. And I'll want the parliament to check every financial records of Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and all the individuals I've mentioned. And so that we're able to trace and draw a conclusion whether is Paul O'Sullivan a clean man or is an agent. So I think based on that investigation, we're able to conclude whether is he indeed a clean man or he is what is being said in public, an agent. If he's a clean man, why he does what he does? If he's an agent, who is he working for? But it is time that this country must not sit back and be run by Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. And if government fails to act on it, the men and women in this country, they're going to take it upon themselves to do something drastic on it. And it might not be what this government wants to do, because he has gone too deep in showing that he's got control all over. And maybe lastly, I might ask the members to say, if you ever heard of any report that is deemed to be classified, that's supposed to expose the wrong that has happened, such reports be interrogated. And one of them, IPID has a responsibility to investigate criminal things. When you hear the Minister of Police says, I've got a report from IPID that is classified, then you need to ask yourself a question. You are not an intelligence structure. What do you do with a classified report that you don't want to release? As IPID, what is that report doing in the Minister first place? Because IPID deals with the criminal case docket. Whatever you investigate must get into the case docket, and that docket must go to court. Why will it go to the minister and the minister goes out public and say, I've classified this report, I won't make it public? So these are the things that need to be checked, because it is when the system of government fails. And you have worked hard to create a legislation to try and protect yourselves, the citizen of the republic. But if it's manipulated in that fashion, that the minister can just decide, I'm classifying this, I'm not releasing it in public, perhaps you need to ask, do your minister that classifies a document, do you have a security clearance yourself? So how do you classify something if you yourself are not vetted? You don't have a security clearance. So what gives you basis to classify something? So those are the typical examples that I'm talking about that might need to be checked. The problem in the law enforcement is so serious in this country that's why I'm saying, if these things are going to be centralized in a national commission, then it might not be fixed. There's too many problems that exist. And if we start looking at how can we decentralize some of the things, we lessen the risk against this country. And it's a serious risk, honorable members. So that's why I'm going to end on that response.
Well, General, I don't understand why would a bully like Paul O'Sullivan, who is a person of interest because he's suspected to have brought some certain gadgets in the country, is now involved in the destabilization of the security cluster, is so deeply involved. Why is the National Commissioner, or including yourself, not opening a case on crimes against the state? Because when you are engaged in the destabilization of the security cluster, you are a national security threat. And therefore, a case should be registered against you, and he must be investigated and be arrested, because he has been going on for a very long time. He has become untouchable, he has become a bully, and it looks like everybody is so helpless around him. What makes it like that? Why are we not opening a case at that level as police, if we have this kind of information to verify the authenticity of the things we hear, so we legitimately investigate him, especially on crimes against the state?
Yeah, well, I think majority of the things that are happening that Paul O'Sullivan is doing at the head office, and the authorized people that are closer, that are affected, that should be assisting us in such investigation, that should be acting on it. Myself, I have not necessarily pursued anything because I never really had much details of what. I will hear him talk about things. What triggered me, first time that drew my attention to him, when he published through the media, he published the photos of Gerald Patlane, who was the acting national commissioner. When he published the photos of Gerald Patlane's house when it was still under construction. And then I started asking myself a question, this house was finished about a year ago. How did he get hold of these photos? That was very interesting to me, that it's not like we're investigating now. and you go to the place, there's construction, you take photos. But he shows a building, a structure that was under construction a year or two ago. But and he started with a complaint later, and he says this man was building a house of this amount, and this how he was paying for the house and so forth. If the Paul Sullivan is going to come and say the National Commissioner, and I said to the National Commissioner, we need to open a case against this. If Paul Sullivan is going to say the National Commissioner owns a property here and here and here and here and here, how does he afford all these properties? How did he get the information? So we always say that you get, I'm sure majority of citizens in South Africa experience that you get a phone call from a company and they market, they want to sell you something, and you ask them, where do you get my number from? They say, no, we got it from marketing, whatever things. The reality is our communication, our contact details, our personal information gets to be shared with third parties without our authorities. That's a reality. And nothing much happens on it. We see it with the marketing happening on our phones, and then we see with people that act to be activists like Paul Sullivan that are going to start publishing things that you wonder, how did he get hold of these things? And if those things exist, why didn't you open a case and get them registered? But he doesn't talk about the case. And what disturbed me the most, which I said to the National Commission, I don't understand how you keep quiet about this. When the National Commission was appointed, Paul O'Sullivan came out public and he said he was given the names of people to profile. He himself said that the presidency gave him names of particular number of people to profile whether they are suitable or not. And he made the recommendation who is suitable or who's not suitable. And some of us didn't know that. When a national commissioner is appointed, it means his profile went via Paul O'Sullivan to profile. So if that is true, it therefore means the president had invited him to come and give advice at the presidency. And that becomes a serious risk for us. So, but I said to the National Commission, it affects you. If it was me, I was going to open a case. But I don't think this thing should be allowed, because this man is saying he's now making a decision as to who becomes the National Commission, please.
General, I want to follow up on the drug cartels. Every time we're told of a big five, and a big five, my understanding is that it's a drug cartel. And when we are asking for the names, we're told of Matlala and Molefe, who are now in jail. But they're not in jail for drugs. They are in jail for a gun that is connected them to some celebrities and all of that. Meta and all. For Transnet, DJ somebody and. How do I conclude that these are the big five of drug cartels? Because they're not charged with drugs. And like you said, the drugs are a big problem. Not that others are not a big problem, but the drugs are the ones that are going to destroy the young ones. And when we are asked about this big five that deals with drug cartels, we are given two people who are in prison, but they're not charged with drugs. How do I conclude that indeed these are members of the drug cartel?
Well, remember, the details can be presented by the team as a covert operation. They have the details about it that I might not be able to talk to it. However, a strategy of arrest, of an investigation of a case, you might arrest a person, although in this case you are labeling them as part of Big Five, and the Big Five is involved in this drug syndicate. We might not arrest them for the drug specific, but the bigger investigation that talks about drugs is there, but the charges that we are putting against them are something else. It's a strategy we employ in the police to keep people behind bars until we are ready with a bigger case and we throw it in. A typical example is the same strategy we employed in KZN when we were dealing with the AKA case. And we arrested a whole lot of them for other cases, just to keep them in custody until we were ready with the main case when it was matured and we could identify all of them. And then we started charging all of them for the murder of our celebrities. Otherwise, they were already in custody. So similar strategy we are doing on these ones. We are taking them for other cases. We are adding any other case because they've got many cases. Safe to say, with respect to the case of the death of that employee at Vereeniging, Mr. Swart, it had nothing to do with drugs. It was tender issues there. that involves Mr. Mlief. But the murders of these DJs is drug related. When the picture you're going to see when the matters gets to court is that this one thought he's clever by stealing this one's drugs and he starts selling them, and this one then killed him. So not to say the victim is a clean man on drugs. He died because of something that he did wrong to this one. So we have a consignment of over 200 million rand, for instance, if I use that as an example. The police in the organization is there to identify exhibit, you book it in the SCP-13 register in the police station, you leave it there. If it's such big thing that you transfer it to another safer storage place, which in this case will be a forensic lab if it's drugs. But it so happened that in KwaZulu-Natal at one stage, there was a consignment found in Durban. And our laboratory in Durban is at Manzimtoti, which is about 10, 15 kilometers away from Durban. And they did not have a facility to keep such consignment of drugs. And the next place where we take these drugs to is Pretoria, where we keep these drugs in the bigger storages. But it so happened that case that the drugs were entered into the SCP-13 register of a police station, booked out the same time, and transported south of KZN to Potchefstroom, and locked into the offices of the PCI that had no one guarding it. And during so-called alleged load shedding at night, there was a break-in in a big storage facility. A break-in inside that facility, there were bags of drugs, and there were also other drugs that were not associated with the ones that came, the consignment that came in, and there were firearms, illegal firearms that were also stored in there. But when the break-in happened, the only thing that was stolen was this specific consignment of 200 million rand of drugs, and nothing else. You arrive at the crime scene, you will expect the crime scene is being cleaned, everything is stolen. But you arrive there, you find an AK-47 standing there, then you say, but why didn't they steal this AK-47? Then you realize the mission was not the AK-47. The mission was drugs. So they came to collect what is theirs, and they took it away. They left everything else untouched. And that made us conclude that it was a plan break-in. Because the question we are asking TPCI, why did you allow these drugs to come to your offices and there's no one guarding, and you have load shedding, and this thing happened during load shedding? So we believe the information tells us that those drugs taken there ended up in Johannesburg are part of the drugs that caused about majority of the murders that happened in Johannesburg. Because people took it and they started stealing, and they did not deliver them where they were supposed to deliver them. And that's what caused the unhappiness from some of the people. So yes, we're not talking about the drugs on the arrest of Mlife, but drugs is part of the problem that leads into the murder. The charge is a murder, but the reason is the drug that comes as a result.
Welcome to the fire where the stakes ignite, where the questions burn hotter than the night. No escape once you're locked in the heat. This is your trial on the hot seat.